and we'll go ahead and get started. So thanks to all those that could work in this special meeting. John Buchanan he's a senior leader for the Go Guardian. John, thanks for coming in from your command post and headquarters. I know your team is on here, and I appreciate those joining on short notice. One of your bonuses is of having this meeting for our districts is we will not have the 20th of May meeting that we normally have to try to give back time. That was a good suggestion by Courtney DeRosset when I met with the field staff a couple days ago, and she braced for that, so not knowing what my reaction was, and I pondered on it, and I said, that's a good idea. We want to give you back some time. But we're going to add some things to the beginning of this agenda before you focus on Go Guardian, since we will not be meeting on the 20th of May, and it really can't, actually the timing of them is good to address right now versus waiting a bit. So the first thing I'll start out with is a really fun thing. Our STLP State Championship Student Technology Leadership Program was on the 23rd of April at Rupp Arena and the Lexington Center. And as a reminder, we take up more space there, floor space, than the other event they have year round. And had a great showing of somewhere between 21,000 and 25,000 folks that were there during that time. I used to think putting on the birthday parties for my kids was a big deal. Until you start doing stuff like that, big deal. But thanks to all those in our districts that participated, and all of our vendor partners and state government partners and our OAT staff. That's I would call it my favorite work day of the year, and it definitely was that. And want to celebrate it next year. It's the 24th of April. It falls on a Friday, and so put that on the calendar. And this coming Friday, tomorrow, and Tuesday, I get to make some special visits to our state champions. And I do want to read off, we have a top 20 list of the projects. We have all the list kind of state championships on the link that I sent you, that the students that won and the runners up for that. But I want to kind of name off the districts and the schools that were part of we call it our terrific top 20. And then I'll talk about our Elite 8 and our Final 4. So part of our terrific top 20, Crittenden County Elementary School, Stonewall Elementary School in Fayette County, Fancy Farm Elementary School in Graves County, Sturgis Elementary School in Union County, Barrett Traditional Middle School in Jefferson County, J. Graham Brown School in Jefferson County, Mazik Middle School in Jefferson County, Meese Middle School in Somerset, Bourbon County High School in Bourbon County. I know they were a former one of our state champions. George Rogers Clark High School, and Hazard High School. Now those were part of our top 20. The 12 that were not part of the Elite 8, but when you start out with 5,000 different kind of projects, that's pretty impressive to kind of get state projects to get it down to that kind of all kinds of projects. Get down to that number is pretty special. Our Elite 8. And I'll start out with the 4 runners up is Ashland Middle School, the STEAM Academy in Fayette County, Mazik Middle School in Jefferson County, and Bloom Elementary in Jefferson County. So those are our state runners up for the projects that we had. And our Final 4 and our state champions, and I'm going to go visit 2 of them tomorrow morning. Russell High School from Russell Independent, and Russell's been a longstanding excellence for many years in STLP, and this adds onto their championship level. They won the Dave Ziegler Award for our best overall technical project, named after our Dave Ziegler, who was part of the birth of our high-speed network. He passed away several years ago. We want to name an award after him. We'll also be visiting tomorrow morning Summit Elementary School in Boyd County. So I'll be doing an Eastern Kentucky trip and probably going to see Mom while I'm out that way. By the way, do you have some Russell County connections on our staff? I know Bob Hackworth is a proud Russell County graduate, and Mike Lettingham's son.
Hey, so I've got to correct you, David. It's Russell Independent. It is not Russell County. There's a Russell County.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you,
my son, who you said is a graduate of Russell Independent, has to correct people all the time at that while he's at UK. They'll say Russell County, and he's like, I'm not from Russell County. I'm from Russell Independent. So anyway, just had to correct you.
Thank you. Well worth the correction there for Russell High School, for Russell Independent. Thank you. And then on Tuesday, we go to the other 2 state champions at the high school state champion, Fairdale High School, and then Cameron Middle School in Jefferson County, and our Commissioner Fletcher got to meet the Cameron Middle School team. Was quite impressed with them, so it's going to be fun. And thanks for all the folks that participated in that very fun event. Next up, I want to discuss the situation between the Kentucky Communication Network Authority and Open Fiber, also known as Excelicom. Last month, and that I sent you some information that we became aware of in January, a pretty serious disagreement and tussle between those two organizations. So we were closely watching it as it went through the courts, the circuit court, and now the Kentucky Court of Appeals. I sent those to you in a link. And also sent you, as you see, the download is actually the ruling by the Kentucky Court of Appeals, which you see, which is a pretty high bar to get an injunction agreed upon in these kind of situations where you got to prove irreparable harm, which is a really high bar to meet. So the next step is, if you can take a look at that download link, you can see that this is going to go to 3 judges to make another determination. I don't know the time frame it will take to do that. And I want you aware of an article, a national article that came out, it was 2 days ago. I don't think it was yesterday, by State Scoop, that kind of pretty good encapsulation of the situation. But the part is what does that mean for Kentucky K-12 internet? So I just want to remind folks is, I tell folks all the time, and I've told both, KCNA and NA by Zayo, that our transition has, in my view, been a grand slam. And you take a look at it from a couple perspectives. Now, it took us 24 months to do that. When you're doing something of this the scale and magnitude and importance, that it takes about this amount of time to transition from one provider to another. So this is not something like I call a cell phone plan, where in a week, a month, you can switch from one to another. It's a massive effort. And it was a massive effort to switch for someone that we had used for about 30 years to a new provider. And it always will be that kind of effort in doing some kind of the transitions. The important part of that for us is we want to have something that was E-rate eligible, and we got that. We want to have something that was really good pricing, and it did. It brought us 1 megabits per student because the pricing that we got, the quality has been outstanding, the reliability has been outstanding, and it also gives districts some additional functionality that we did not have before. So in every aspect, we're very pleased with it. So what does that mean to K-12? Well, in Kentucky. So if Excelicom is who is our level 2 provider for ENA, and so they're a subcontractor of the Education Networks of America by Zayo. If Excelicom is successful and their next part about here of trying to get the action taken against them stopped, then we'll continue to use Excelicom, obviously. If Excelicom is unsuccessful in the courts to not have their contract stopped, then ENA by Zayo has to look at another provider to be their subcontractor at the level 2. And that may be some of our traditional folks that we used before, the Excelicoms, or not the Excelicoms, but the AT&Ts, the Windstreams, the Thacker Grigsbys. That's what we had previously used in that environment. Or you take a look at ENA may do that level 2 themselves. You have Zayo as a very large company, a national company, and they may step in to do that. But we really will turn to ENA by Zayo to handle that. Now, there's notices going out from Excelicom. You can call them eviction notices or whatever you want to call them, because the wording you saw in the court here that was proposed is 30-day notification, at least, is what I'm told. And we know this is not like switching a cell phone plan for something of our size and scale. No district in Kentucky really should have received anything for our NGKI, any of those eviction notices. First of all, is that's not, we're the provider and ENA is provider, so anything that would happen would come there. There's only 2 school districts in Kentucky that I'm aware of that have gotten an eviction notice, and that's because they're buying an optional service or looking at buying an optional service through Excelicom. So it does not have anything to do with their Prime and Kentucky Department of Education Internet Hub. So I just want to make folks aware of that. So the obviously, if it stays as it is, there's not what you have to go through of a transition, which will be a very lengthy one. But much like the home renovation I went through a couple years ago, anytime you do a major home renovation that touches every part of their home, and it takes 18 to 24 months to do, then there's some concerns about what'll happen with the disturbances or anything, the distractions that'll happen when you're doing something of that size and scale. So for the most part, hopefully, if there's a transition that has to occur to a new level 2 provider, that will be minimized. But I want to make you aware of, and I tried to give you a heads up on it previously. It's something that we have been closely following and in communication pretty frequently with Education Networks of America about the next step as they're our prime provider. So I just want to make sure you all are aware of that. We do have the online summit of assessments occurring now. My understanding is a very high percentage of them, and anyone can speak up, will be done next week. Obviously, that comes into play with the school guardian discussion because it affects the timing. And for the most part, it's my understanding that a very large percentage of that summative testing is done next week, not necessarily 100%. And there may be some makeup testing of, for example, ACT. But that should be minimalized as well. And it's also my understanding is from Bruce Lindsay, who is our outstanding KEDS engineer from Region 2, who's played a lot of different roles for Kentucky K-12 over a year. We've been fortunate of that. Once a month, we have an Office of Education Technology team huddle just for our staff. And we ask one of our folks, our field staff, to educate our staff what's the hot topics going on in the field. So we call it the heartbeat of the field. And Bruce did an outstanding job of that. But what Bruce educated folks on is once the testing is over, almost immediately the devices are picked up from the students. And so there's not like a couple of weeks that goes by after testing. It's almost immediate they pick those up because it takes some time to get the stragglers in. It just takes time to get that scaling in. So as it relates to the Go Guardian, we should expect is, for those that are holding off until the testing, and then the devices themselves will not be really, for the most part in districts, available, that they'll be part of in the students' hands as the transition's occurring. If the transition occurs in the May timeframe or the June timeframe for those student devices. Last item before we talk to our Go Guardian topic is the Kentucky Department of Education did submit our reconsideration for the U.S. Department of Education for the $4.3 million in federal funding that was previously approved by the U.S. Department of Education back in August and September 24, but we got notice at the end of March that even though that had been approved before, is being denied now. And that's happened across the nation, by the way. And so we have reapplied for that, and districts in Kentucky have reapplied for that. They're in the middle of construction projects, middle of paying for buses, or already done it. And for us, that was putting in, a couple of things. It was the cybersecurity defense system, the last phase of that, putting that in place. That was about $3 million worth of that. And then we had the Infinite Campus online learning or the campus learning and the online registration and e-transcripts. And so, as I told folks before, I think the probability of nearly every state and every district getting any of that approved is close to zero, given the tone and context of the number received and people being on calls with the U.S. Department of Education. And so that's our early indication is nothing has been approved that was been submitted here in Kentucky. So we'll see when we learn that in a more formalized way, I'll share that with you, but I want to give you a heads up on that. So now let's shift the discussion to the Go Guardian implementation. I was talking with some of our staff members that were involved with the Go Guardian implementation with the Go Guardian team. And we thought, I'm going to use some analogies, sports analogies, but Jody, I can't help it, there's a couple of different ways to look at it is, we just had the Kentucky Derby, and, that's a 1.25 mile race, and you're watching it. And this Kentucky Derby had a muddy track, and I'm always amazed at how well horses can run on a muddy track. But it tells me that those that win on a muddy track, those are really some champions. And in most of life, and in most anything you do is a muddy track, by the way. So this reminds me of, we have gone down the track the way I know we kicked off and started, or had the starting gate open around January for the Go Guardian implementation. And people have been working hard on that during that time. But now we're coming around that last final home stretch, right? Kind of make that turn, and trying to get it good across the finish line, everybody in a good spot. Along the race and at the beginning of a race, you're going to have people that may say, I'm not running the race. We'll call those scratches. So we've had some scratches. I'll call those waivers, so far. Maybe 10 or 12 of those waivers that say, I'm not running this race, or I was intending to, but I'm not going to do that. And we'll monitor those as they go forward. For the most part, I think districts have identified to our field staff of those that are scratches that are no longer going to be in this horse race, or at least not going to be completed in what we call the cutover of our from light speed to Go Guardian, from the DNS cutover from those by June 30th. And so, and there may be X number of those that occur after this time. Make sure you keep your field staff member involved. If you haven't already done so, as you kind of go down this path as we're on the home stretch, to what the intentions are and your ability to do that. But we do want everybody to get to be in a good, comfortable place. We recognize part of this muddy track has been the compressed time frame. We would all have wished that this would have been awarded last July or before that, but there's a lot of reasons way beyond even our here at KD that it was not until January. I can remember even in that November and December saying, where are we at in getting it done? And it takes some time to get it across all the different things they have to do when you do a statewide bid, especially at this magnitude, this many people involved. So we're understanding of all that. Want to try to do things as much as possible to reduce the concerns you may have, the stress you may have. And I think there's a couple of different options that we're going to be talking about that will allow that to happen. So I'm going to, first of all, kind of open up and go through the items that I sent you a little bit earlier, those bullet points. And then I'm going to turn it over to John Buchanan and his excellent Go Guardian team to kind of do some introductory comments, and we'll take some comments from the field too. We have this as scheduled to end at 11:30, Eastern time, but, we'll stay on here if there's still questions and stuff here. We'll stay right here because this is an important enough topic, because as I said, we're coming along the home stretch, and we want to make sure we get as many people across the finish line, organizations in a good position as we can by the 30th of June. So just a reminder, there's a 1998 state law that came out that required internet content management, a basic system to be in place for all students and adults. So that, John, we were talking earlier, that may be different. I'm always surprised that in other states they're not doing their adults. That seemed that maybe that'd be common sense for K-12 adults, but there are states and even some of your statewide deployments that the adults are not part of. They don't do the adults. I know companies, most organizations do, but that was new news to me. That would be just be common sense. You do the adults, because I think the adults are just as much of a handful as the students in this arena, and so you definitely want to have some things there in place. So required for all K-12 adults that can take a K-12 internet service or are using a device provided by the district to get on the internet to provide internet content management. It also required that the tracing and the inspectability of the activity, internet activity, be part of this. And obviously the tools that we have, the Lightspeed tool allows the ability for someone without a computer science degree to take a look at the internet activity of someone. And so those are the two key components that were required of that law that related to the discussion today. And even since 1998, typically when we do a statewide bid and make a product standard, typically it is the product standard, and it's close to never has an exception. Examples that would be our information system, our financial management system, our high-speed network. We have other examples that really there are no exceptions to that. This is the one area that we did allow exceptions, and the reason I know that is because I was part of creating it in 1998. So the district does have the choice and option not to use a state-provided internet content management system, although we would like a very high percentage of them to do it for a lot of good reasons. It was not an absolute requirement. However, if the district opts out of using the state provided, the district pays 100% of the costs associated with what they do separately, every aspect of that ongoing. And that's been the case since 1998. The districts that didn't use Microsoft Proxy that we provided until 2015 paid for that, whatever they were using, 100% on their own. And then we made the transition over to Lightspeed. Anyone not using Lightspeed paid for all those costs 100% on their own. And then that's going to be the same case with this as we make the switch over, the transition from Lightspeed to GoGuardian. Anyone that's not using GoGuardian, the district will pay every aspect of that 100%. So that's just you have the choice, but there are consequences to that choice. And you may say, it's a better fit for me to use something else, and I'm willing to absorb that cost, or I'd like another year or two to evaluate what's going on here, and I'm willing to absorb that cost and pay for it 100% myself, then that's definitely a choice that you have. And I've told our staff that, and I told everyone that this is unique in that regard. It doesn't mean you're anti-CATs, anti-anything that we're doing, because typically I know most people try to go in the same direction. I appreciate that. And so it's not taken as, well, you're anti what we're trying to do. If you make the choice to stay with, for example, Lightspeed, or use some other product beyond what we have beyond Lightspeed. I know seems like we have 2 districts that have done that, use another product beyond Lightspeed. I think right now, before we started this transition, we had 169 of 171 districts on Lightspeed. All KD, the agency organizations, KSD, KSB, and us were on Lightspeed. So we've had 2 districts that have been willing to pay for that other service for many years, and it wasn't GoGuardian. So same thing occurs with this, and right now it's our understanding we may have 10 or 12 that have at this point said, you know what, I want to remove myself for the race. They may circle back in a year, and I know you guys are aggressively working on trying to get them part of GoGuardian. That we understand that. I suspect those that are on the scratches are those companies are going to try to keep them too. So that's just part of the competitive efforts. And I know you guys are. I've talked to the CEOs of both those companies, and you're both open for that competition. So or the senior leaders of those organizations. That's part of it. Once again, if I take a look at the third point, see if there's anything in the second point that I need to go over again. Yeah, we did have a competition. Yeah, that's worth mentioning. And then these RFPs that you do, these statewide RFPs, anyone that's been part of this, it doesn't realize kind of the massive amount of time and energy it spends on this. But that was an open competition for all those that are involved with internet content management. Lightspeed was part of that competition, along with a couple of others. And GoGuardian was the winner of that competition. And we took a look at the technical part of that, capabilities of that, along with the pricing. So just so you know, our incumbent was part of that competition, but was not successful in retaining the contract beyond 1 July 2025. So back in January, we announced this and focused the entire webcast on it, kind of like we're doing today. We also provided some detailed kind of looks at the product during that time. I know you all have been working, talk about that aggressively to get people the best they can familiar with that product. As we talked about earlier, John, there's other things that are happening during the school year that it's not necessarily 6 months. It's much more condensed period because they got testing. I know for us, when we switched over, we had a legislative session going on. Right. And I remember, different offices saying, can you not wait till legislative session's over? Because if there's any problems, we don't want it not to work. But, we were the pilot, so we had to go. But those happen, you have spring break, as we were talking about, you have this going on, and a good number of districts do transitions, we know, in the summertime. And there's an option for them to do that here for a good part of it, where we make the DNS cutover, by say 30 June, and they could have a month or two to do the devices during the summertime. So maybe it reduces that compression or angst or stress with other things that are competing for the CIO's time and the district time during that time frame. I've mentioned here in the bullet point 4 about we stopped paying for that, 100% on the 30th of June. And by the way, and I think they have this a note, is Lightspeed also 100% stops providing that service that we're paying for right at midnight. Um, at midnight of June 30th, that service no longer works that we're paying for. So we stopped paying for it, which makes sense. They would stop paying for it at that time. So for the districts that are looking to go to GoGuardian, the DNS cutover really needs to occur on the 30th of June or before that time, ideally before that time, that time frame. Bullet point 5, we talked about the opportunities districts have had since January to get familiar with the product, but there may have been a lot of other competing priorities, for that. So they're just now kind of taking a close look at it. The agency, we did a switch over with it. I can tell you, we have, 500 some adults. We have KSD and KSB. Those haven't been switched over yet, but they will be. So we have, a flavor of, for the agency, I would just say in the Sauer facility, 95% of what we do are Windows-based machines. The other 5% are Mac OS laptops, iPads, and Chromebooks. And John, when we were talking earlier this morning, the Windows piece, if other states don't do the adults, you are probably more familiar because for the most part, Chromebook is the primary device being used by a very high percentage of students across America, including Kentucky. So the Windows piece is something that's not done in other states. I think you've recognized that's a piece that you all got to get better at. Yep. And you're willing to admit that. For us, we're primarily Windows devices. I got to tell you. And I've asked our staff yesterday in a safe environment. I asked every KD office separately. We had them in a meeting. Are you experiencing anything major with this transition that's noticeable? The answer was a firm no. And these are folks that will speak out. They're not like I'm afraid to speak out. They will almost go their way to speak out. We run into the same thing that we always run into when we do a transition. We ran into this. We transitioned from Proxy to Lightspeed and Lightspeed now to GoGuardian. Initially, some of the things that folks could get to were blocked. So we had to call in and they were unblocked. They were unblocked fairly quickly. Or even the same thing, I can get to this. I shouldn't be able to get to this. And making people aware. And there's always going to be that fine tuning. And, so for us is, we went through being the pilot. And I do appreciate Lightspeed. The initial removal tool of the client on the Windows devices was not a good experience for us. Our office was the pilot. And they fine-tuned that, they being Lightspeed. So it was a better experience for the rest of the offices in KDE. So we've had a good experience with it. We've had, Jody, I think we've had 35 districts. It's not quite 40. I think you were telling me, unless that number's changed, that have done the DNS cutover from Lightspeed to GoGuardian. And so for me, that's a metric that I'm looking at is not necessarily the fine-tuning and all the clients loaded. Is when is the DNS, cutover? That's the real metric that I'm trying to, get some dates at. I know your team, John, is you're working with people on getting familiar with the product, introducing or trying to get that cutover date as well. 100%. Yeah. And we're trying to get it so it's not all on the same date, by the way. Yep. It'd be ideal, I'm going to use a bus analogy, that all the buses, don't show up at the same time for example, an STLP event at the same, same exact drop off on the same road at the same time. So you try to spread that out a little bit of the different drop-off spots and the different times, get there a little bit earlier. But like life is, we're going to have a large portion of folks wait till, because of a variety of things, they'll be waiting till the last second. So we'll have a lot of buses probably lined up on June 30th to do the cutover, or maybe on the 27th or 28th. So we're going to be prepared for that. But for our point of view, I can just talk about it from the agency. For our adults with those devices, all those different devices, primary Windows, it's been very successful. We also did this with Lightspeed. I asked, what's the most common kind of profile things and list of things and categories of things that the districts are blocking? We want to do the same thing. And so we've tried our best to mimic what the average district has as far as their filtering policies for adults. Now, for us is we try to keep it, I call it a right-hand layup. I'm going to use instead of a football analogy or horse racing. When I coach youth basketball, the very simplest thing, and I know I do this, we have some lefties there too, but it's coming to a jump stop and doing, a layup. So we try to keep, most of this stuff, really jump stop layup. So for our approach for our adults, we don't have different things we filter for different adults. The adults are the adults. And my understanding was that's what it is for a high percentage of school districts. They don't have different rule sets for all the different results. Adults is adults. And for the most part, they try to keep the adult stuff pretty simple as compared to the students. They don't go to the levels of things of blocking for the adults that they do for the students. So to me, the adults, should be a pretty easy thing, and you try to keep it a pretty easy thing. I mean, we don't want people shooting, half court shots when they can come in and shoot a layup, and so, I can't tell if we've got people shooting a bunch of half court shots or we got, there's a simpler way to do it. But I would always say, try to uncomplex it. And we try to uncomplex it, at KDE and keep it simple and keep it a right hand layup. I've talked about you need to get DS that number 7. I've changed some of the wording in that to what I sent to you last Friday. To really use the same terminology is I call it the DNS cutover date. So there's planning that occurs, all these major initiatives that we have done over the years, including the one we just finished with the high-speed network. There is tons of planning that occurs and training that occurs. So we understand that, that's occurring. But there's a date, just like I gave every KD office, there is a date that they are switched over from Lightspeed to GoGuardian. Every office got that because we were kind of phasing that into them to make sure that we weren't doing that all at the same time at KD. We were learning in case we need to learn. Now the very last offices were pretty much all bunched in because we had it down at that time. So just trying to get that, as I say, is the districts identifying that they're going, and then the DNS cutover date, and then it can take, for as long as it takes to get it stabilized. So for us, we did it kind of the same time. We removed the tool. With the cutover date, it was the cutover date for them and the removal of the tool and the adding of the GoGuardian. So it was removal of the Lightspeed, a client from the Windows devices and the extensions from the other devices. And then it's actually pointing to the GoGuardian system. And so we understand there's broken glass got to be fixed after you switch over to DNS. It takes time to remove a client or extension and add a new one. But the date that we're really looking for is your cutover date, because a lot of things can happen after that cutover date. And I say is we stopped paying for Lightspeed, after June 30. So we have to have it pointing to something. And so we have to have it pointing off Lightspeed. And if you're one of those that have scratched from this race, is you have to make sure that service is in place for you by 1 July. So that is a requirement. So if you're using another provider, if you're intending to use Lightspeed, you will need to make sure you're coordinating with them to make sure that service, once we do that cutover, it's ready. And some of those have identified to us early that they're scratching out of this race. And we'll talk about, when we pick up those Lightspeed devices going forward. Now, number 8 is I've talked about this one a bit, that stuff stops working. And I'm not going to hit on that one again. A big change is number 9 that I sent you last Friday. And this is Lightspeed. I do appreciate Lightspeed doing a couple of things for us to help reduce this compression of having to have everything complete by 30 June, and everything is way beyond the DNS cutover. So you don't have to have Lightspeed removed from your Windows devices and all your Chromebooks and your Mac OS and iPads by 30 June. But there is something you have to have done before 1 August. So for those of you who have Windows devices, and of all of our state of Kentucky, Marty, what percentage of Windows devices are we? Help me out, because I know if it's 13, 12%.
It's 12% is our footprint of Windows
12%.
devices.
So, and that's dropping every year. That drops. I don't know what it stays at. So for the 12% of devices that are out there, you have until 1 August to use the Lightspeed removal tool to remove the Lightspeed client on the devices. Now, it makes sense. Lightspeed has made that client very difficult to remove because you don't want students and you don't want adults, because I tell you both can be a handful, and both would be tempted to remove it easily if they could remove it easily. So it's intentionally made not to be able to remove very easily. But Lightspeed has provided a tool for the Windows devices that will remove it. And I can speak to that because we used it in KDE, the agency. And when they gave us the second version of it, it worked very effectively for those organizations. But the shot clock for that runs out 1 August. So let me give you an example. Those that wait till the 30th of June to do your DNS cutover, you will have, approximately another 30 days to switch over your Windows devices. If you don't do it within those 30 days for Windows devices, the only way I'm understanding you can do it is you got to completely wipe out the computer and re-image it, which I know that's not a fun task for the Windows devices. Now, the good news is, and this is a change from what I sent out last week, for the Chromebooks, for the Mac OS devices, for the iOS devices, you do not have that 1 August shot clock. The removal tool that of the extensions or the clients that Lightspeed provides will work way beyond 1 August. So you have the amount of time. You're not in the shot clock for this, which is once again a pretty good thing for those districts that may be waiting to August to maybe do the removal of the extensions on the Chromebooks and place the GoGuardian thing out there. So it gives you more time to do this. You're not in such a crunch to have all this done by the 3rd of June. So that's a big change, because before, what I put out last Friday, was the shot clock also applied to the Chromebook by the 3rd of June, and it does not. That's one of the best news things that I can share here today and emphasize of what was put out last week. Now, I know Mike Lettingham, I appreciate Mike working with Lightspeed about the hardware devices that will need to be removed from the Kentucky Education Technology System KENRAC, Kentucky Education Network rack, we call it the KENRAC. So given that, Lightspeed will no longer be our Kentucky K-12 internet product standard for the internet content management system, it will be removed from the KENRAC. And so as I can recall, Mike, you telling me those that have, scratched or opted out already, those 10 or 12, we will, we'll identify someone to remove that Lightspeed device from the KENRAC, and you can place it somewhere else in your district.
Oh, yeah, David, real quickly, I'll just speak real quickly to that. For any district that identifies to us or that Lightspeed identifies to us, and of course, jointly we'll confirm and verify, is going to continue to utilize Lightspeed beyond July 1, we will coordinate and work to how that device will be removed from the KENRAC and be able to place it in a local district rack. And that is assuming the local district takes accountability and responsibility for that piece of equipment. And essentially assumes ownership of it. And then for any districts that's not the case, sometime after July 1, we will be coordinating and arranging for the removal of that Lightspeed equipment from the KENRAC, and we'll essentially proceed with disposal of that equipment and removal of that equipment. So that's kind of the high level summary and process there.
Okay. Thanks. And I think you said, Mike, and I can't remember if you said this, for those that, since it's not considered KD equipment, for those that are, switching over to GoGuardian, it's not, Lightspeed is saying it's not their equipment. It'll be considered, abandoned equipment is a way that I think you use that term. So the district has a choice of using that Lightspeed device, as I think you said, a hood ornament or anything else they want to use it for. Or, just we'll have a team there. If there's no really good functional use, and I'd recommend you just let the team that we identify that comes and picks that up. So
yeah, that's correct, David. Yeah, that's correct. Any of the equipment that a district's not choosing to continue to utilize, they'll still have the option after July 1 when we remove that equipment. We're essentially identifying it as no longer usable or functional. And I did use the word abandoned. That may be a little harsh term, but if the district still wants that equipment, we'll hand it off to them, let them have it. And again, I did make the statement of, I don't know what they would do with it. Lightspeed agreed with me. I said they can use it for a hood ornament and put it in their stack of stuff that just sits around. I wouldn't recommend that. But yeah, they'll still have the choice if they want to hold on to that for whatever purpose or reason.
Yeah. And just as to go back to that a little bit is, where you don't have two clients, for example, on a Windows device. You don't have to go to an admin client, because it will not work with the Lightspeed filter client on it. So that's the process why we go through removing that and putting a new one on there. So, and it's definitely not recommended ever. You have two devices, two things on there. And I don't think it's a good expenditure of taxpayer funds, whether it be local, state, or federal, to be paying for two that go on a single computer. I think you have a tough time justifying having two of those on a single computer. We've already discussed some options. I've gone to number 11 and worked that in throughout to give you ability to where if there's a big compression thing, you want some more time, is, for our, the DNS cutover is done by our OET staff, and it takes about 5 minutes, I think, per district. And so obviously we don't want 100 districts waiting till 30 June. But, we could do some on the 25th, the 26th. I think the 30th of June is on a Monday, really to keep them from doing it on a weekend as well. But it does give you some more time to deal with the client issue for those devices and get them stabilized the best you can, and dealing with some broken glass at the beginning of the school year if you've not got a chance to really test all the student devices and trying to get to certain things. Just as a reminder, this has always been the case for optional products is that go beyond the basic internet content management system like GoGuardians, Beacon, and Teacher. That's 100% district expenditure. You can use SEEK funds to purchase those. We won't be purchasing those types of services, and so and that'd be true for any kind of thing that goes beyond the basic system. Lightspeed has those optional ones too. That those need to be 100% funded and really funded with something beyond ed tech funds, like the SEEK funds if a district is going to do that. So I'll look here, John. I think what I'll do is I'll just take a look at the chat part. Just the way this works is I'll take a look here at the folks, what they're saying in the chat. Some of this is we have it so, districts can unmute themselves and speak. Just remember, and I would always say this in any kind of setting is, this is, our, GoGuardians, our partner, and everybody needs to be treated with dignity and respect in what they do and what they say. I would say that anytime. That's why I'm not a big fan of anonymous kind of comments. I believe you should be able to, it's a good adult skill to be critical, but also be respectful at the same time. And so I'd ask that whatever you do in the chats, and as long as I see the chats being constructive, we'll allow the chats go there, and otherwise we'll make folks just do it voice to voice. There's a tendency, even when you're writing, you say it voice to voice, to be a little bit more respectful in what you're saying. But, this is the time that I know you're going to be very open, yep, John, with, the things going well, the things that we need to work on, things you are working on. So I'll let you'll take it over from here.
Great. Thank you, David, and it's great to see all of you, and particularly being here in person. Before I jump into a couple of opening thoughts, I do want to make sure my team, you're actively looking at the meeting chat. There's some very good questions coming in, and as we go through the content that we have developed for this presentation, let's make sure that we connect the things that we're talking about in those slides with the questions and some of the comments that have come up in the chat. The good news is I've had a chance to sort of look through some of the chat, as I think we have a lot of those answers in place. So I feel very good about that, but always good to make sure that we are connecting the work that we're doing with some of the questions that are coming up. So appreciate my team doing that. I want to just quickly open it with 5 comments. Number one, David, to you and the team, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here in person. I had a chance to say hi to Jennifer and Logan and Marty, and obviously spend time here with David, and just so appreciate the chance to be here in person. Your facilities and your state are obviously beautiful. This is a beautiful time of the year to be here. And the reason why I'm here is really 2 reasons. Number one is I want to make sure that everyone here in the state of Kentucky recognizes the commitment that we have as an organization to support all of you. And I'm here to do that and to reinforce that. Obviously, sitting here in the office with David hopefully recognizes and affirms our commitment to that. But more important than that is for me to actually get on the ground. I've got time with Logan and the team here at KDE this afternoon to go through specifically some of the challenges. I'm meeting Amy and the Fayette team later on today to sit down and understand specifically what's going on. I want to make sure that from my vantage point, I really do understand what's going well and what's not going well, because I can make impact that hopefully positively improves the things that we're doing for you each and every day. So while it's important for me to be here from a partnership standpoint, it's equally important for me to be able to get on the ground and be in the conversations to understand what I can do to help. The third thing that I'm going to say is there's a lot for us to be proud of. We're going to touch on a couple of things here. David mentioned this. We kicked this off mid-January. We got going at the end of January. And this is sort of a flight that is supposed to be done by 6:30, and it's compressed, and there's a lot of work to do. And so let's be proud of the things that we have done to date as an organization and as a team working through that. Having said that, there's also a lot that we have learned, and there's a lot that we can do better. And what I'm very proud of from an organization standpoint is we're going to talk through the 3 areas that we have learned where we can help improve the things that we can do to support you. And we're going to get very specific on those things. And the buckets that I'm going to talk to are in the frame of product. We have best-in-class product, but there's obviously things that we can do on the product side to get better to meet your needs. Team's going to walk through how we're taking the insights from our conversations and improving that. That's bucket one. Bucket two is support. We've got a best-in-class customer support organization. I've got the statistic to back it up, but there are always things that we can do better to support you, particularly as it relates to some of the specific and unique needs that each of you have, and we've got plans in place to solve that. And three is resourcing. We've got a Kentucky hub. We have our help center, and there are other means by which we have to give you resources to support you. That's also considered to be quite good, but we can always get better, and we're going to talk through how we're getting better within that area. So you're going to see the team specifically walking through areas where we are learning from you and improving each and every day to get you what you need to be able to feel very good about this partnership and also the experience that we're going to deliver as we go into the back to school year. The fourth thing that I'm going to talk about is I'm highly competitive, and I want everyone to understand that we recognize that there are certain districts that have chosen to opt out, to scratch, to use David's term. We recognize that, appreciate that, and respect that, but we're going to continue to be the best partner to you to hopefully win you over, if not now in the next few months, but in the next 6 months, the next year, because we do believe we have the best product, we do believe we have the best organization, and we do believe we can be the very best partner to you, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable to prove that to you each and every day. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to the team now and let them walk through some of our accomplishments that we feel very good about, and then get more importantly and more specifically into the areas that we need to make sure that we continue to improve upon with dates that allow us to meet the needs that all of you have in time for not only the 6:30 cutover, but also more importantly, getting ready for back to school. So David, once again, thanks for the opportunity to be here in person. Team, over to you, and looking forward to the conversation and getting into a good back and forth here as far as Q&A goes. And hopefully everybody heard me okay there. I'm trying to be great. Thank you for that.
Okay, I'm about to share my screen, so hopefully you all can see that. But good morning, everyone. My name is Erin, for those of you who I haven't had the pleasure to speak with. I'm the director over the Southeast here, and I've been working very closely hand in hand with the KDE team, Jennifer and Jody, and just super excited to partner with the great state of Kentucky and yeah, represent Go Guardian. We're going to quickly go through, just as John mentioned, a quick partnership overview, though you guys know most of these things, and it's already been reiterated by John and David today. Some of our product innovation and roadmaps, some of our switchover and certification support, and then of course, feedback. We want to hear questions. We see the chat and talk about next steps. Again, you all know this, but Kentucky, the state, is paying for our Go Guardian admin filtering solution, and we do have negotiated rates for our add-on or value-add products, Go Guardian Teacher, our classroom management functionality, and Go Guardian Beacon, our safety solution tool. And what we bring to the partnership, I won't spend too much time on this slide. Again, a lot of this has been talked through today and will continue to be talked through in future slides, but we really are here to strategize, create a in-sync operating plan, have really clear roles and responsibilities, collaborate and provide data and insights, all of this in collaboration with the KDE team, with Jody and Jennifer, with David, to make sure we're in lockstep to ensure there is a continuous feedback loop. So we are continuously improving, making things better, and working towards that June 30th switchover date. And we have this implementation timeline, and as it was alluded to, we're trying to do this in about 5 to 6 months. I know that's a quick timeline, and we are already at May, so we're approaching that end date of June 30th pretty rapidly, and I think we all know we'll blink and we'll be there. But we are really excited about what has taken place so far from January through April, and we're going to talk about some of those things. So far to date, we have launched all districts who are going to be implementing Go Guardian next year. Everyone is in the implementation phase. They've all had a chance to attend our webinars and get set up with meetings with our team. We've quickly prioritized and addressed several product feature requests. Oh, can you all still see my screen? I'm just making sure. Okay, good. Sorry, my screen flashed and wanted to be sure. So quickly prioritizing to address several product feature requests, like DNS on-prem and improved reporting. We're going to get into that in more detail in a bit. We've created and then redesigned a Kentucky resource hub. We'll talk about that more in a bit. We've successfully delivered over 140 districts in our onboarding webinars. Almost 40, I think we're about to hit 40 districts. David alluded to that earlier, who have done the switchover or certification in advance of June 30th. And I know that number is going to continue ticking up over the coming weeks. We have, as a team, 4+ meetings a week for that continuous feedback loop. We are constantly meeting pretty much every single day to talk about this project, to be better, to learn, to pivot, to support you all. We have 156 districts in progress towards a successful transition. And we've identified several GoGuardian team members whose primary focus is just to support Kentucky. So we really have a dedicated team for you. Some high stats, 1,000+ hours spent with our solutions engineering team. I think a lot of people on this call know Stephen Harwood's name or Eamon Hennedy's name. They have spent over 1,000 hours with you all since January to help support this onboarding. 600+ one-on-one meetings to support that cutover or switchover, and 156 districts in progress. And again, we just want to reiterate, we are 100% committed to the success of this switchover by June 30th for everyone. Amanda and Randy, I don't know if I warned you ahead of time that I was going to put your picture on here, but you were so grateful a week or two ago to provide us with some feedback. And I just want to say thank you. Amanda and Randy at Eastburn, Stat, and Letcher were two of our very first districts who made this a successful switch over to GoGuardian. They had some awesome feedback to share, specifically around their overall sentiment, the support they received, how we were able to jump on calls quickly, but also, to be fair, they had feedback as well, and we're going to be addressing that too, like the DNS troubleshooting, IP blocking, filtering settings, things like that. And again, we're going to be addressing that. We take all of this feedback seriously, and it's on our these things are on our roadmap, and again, we'll be discussing that. So thank you, Amanda and Randy, and everyone on this call for the feedback and the partnership. Okay, and as John alluded to, what we're about to, I'm passing it over to some other members of our team, but we have 3 main buckets that we're going to be addressing today. So our product, again, we recognize that some of our solutions for non-Chromebook devices, like mentioned for the KDE entity that are non-student, we have some reporting structures that are not sufficient for your needs, and we are prioritizing those fixes. Support, we have world-class support. Our support team is phenomenal. We have great stats to back that up, and we're excited to share some of that with you today. And we have a lot of resources to support you as you guys make this switch over to GoGuardian. And again, excited to share that with you all. And now, without further ado, I'm really excited to pass the ball over to Brian Larkin. He is our Principal Product Manager for GoGuardian Admin. He is the man behind the scenes who makes it all happen. And so, Brian, I'm going to pass it to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate you. I'm also joined here by Nate Paul, one of the other product managers here at GoGuardian, so we can answer your questions and dive into all the detail that y'all may want us to get to. So first, let's take a little history lesson and talk about where we've come and what investment GoGuardian has already made to make the transition from Lightspeed to GoGuardian a little bit easier for y'all. Number one, back in February, we released a new feature called Smart Alerts for Proxies. This has been a favorite for our entire customer base. Essentially what it does is it's a dynamic content inspection tool that looks at the page that the student is on, determines if it's a proxy or not, and allows you to block that, message the student, or even assign it to a staff member for any behavioral counseling or escalation. It does that by 2 methods. It uses both the machine learning inspection as well as a trained AI model that looks at the content of the page to say, does this look like something a student would use to bypass filtering or get to something that they shouldn't? So that's a huge favorite of our entire customer base. It's been wildly successful thus far. I highly encourage y'all to try it out once you do the switch over. We also, earlier this year, back in March, released an updated categorization engine. Naturally, one of the key parts of any filtering product is the categorization function. You need the ability to say, okay, allow, let's say educational content, but not social media content, right? And so But that's obviously a huge challenge for us because of the sheer entropic nature of the internet. It's always growing and moving and changing, right? So we have to keep growing and moving and changing our categorization engine to keep up with that. So we released a brand new machine learning and artificial intelligence powered model that categorizes all of our traffic. And I will say it actually has specifically trained, we call them binary classifiers, for those categories that are specifically concerning like pornography or games. So that way it's very, very accurate on those concerning categories. We followed that in April. Sorry, forgot my months there for a second, folks. We followed that in April with an update that'll make it easier for you all to transition off of Lightspeed, and that is to import all of your YouTube video settings as well as URL settings in one easy import process. So you don't have to do separate imports. It's just one clean and easy method for you to import everything. And then earlier this month, we released a new feature called DNS On-Prem, which is a new on-prem installation tool that will allow you to provide greater differentiated filtering based off of internal IP addresses. This functionality specifically is meant to target those bring your own device setups and to provide differentiated filtering between, let's say, teachers, students, maybe guests, or visiting staff members. So you can kind of keep your policies tuned in the way that you're looking for. So that is what has been done already or is currently in beta. I will say that the beta for DNS on-prem is going quite well. So far, the customers are very happy with the functionality, but we know we can't stop there. So let's talk about what's coming in the future or what's currently in flight. Slide, please. All right. So one of the first items that I want to talk about is a new feature we're calling it DNS On-Prem V2. And see, folks, this is why I'm not in marketing, because I am definitely not, that's not my skill set. But really, this is an evolution of that DNS on-prem feature, and it really includes two key features. Number one, agent awareness. And this will ensure that if you have a backup DNS filter that is encapsulating devices which already have an agent on them, you can tell your DNS filter to ignore those devices since they've already been filtered by the agents on them. So that will help reduce overblocking for you. We are also adding in user awareness to our DNS reporting so that for authenticated devices, you will be able to see the username and email right next to the internal IP address and the external IP address of that user. We hope this makes troubleshooting a lot easier for administrators. We know that troubleshooting DNS issues can be thorny, and obviously we're hoping to make some changes to make that a little bit easier for y'all. The team is in flight on this, like I said, and making good progress, and we're currently slated for a beta in mid-June. So we're excited to get that out in front of y'all as well. Now, after that, as I said, we're not stopping there. We have a lot of stuff planned for y'all. And honestly, a lot of our roadmap over the next, actually, for a long time is committed to Kentucky. So up next, after DNS on-prem, we're also going to be working on improving the GoGuardian app, specifically diagnostic information in the GoGuardian app to make it easier to troubleshoot issues when issues are causing blocks like SSL pinning or other things where it's not a policy that's causing a block and there's something technical behind the scenes that's causing the issue. So that is on deck for the team to start work on. We're also going to be enhancing our DNS reporting even further. So as I mentioned, with DNS on-prem v2 and the beta in mid-June, we will be updating our DNS reporting, but we're not stopping there. We have a whole bunch of plans around better visualizations, trending information, ways to make troubleshooting DNS even easier. So we're going to be investing heavily into that. And then lastly, really investing heavily into browsing activity reporting and making it as easy as possible to see exactly what students are doing and I guess modify your policies and as a result. So of course, that is what is in flight and on deck. Now, before I get on to the next slide, I want to mention briefly that the focus, I think, of all of these initiatives really has been to respond to the exact feedback we've gotten from Kentucky districts. So I'm really excited that we've been able to pivot our roadmap and support y'all in this manner. And let's talk about where exactly all that feedback came from. So next slide, please. Slide, please. Oh, there we go. Got it. As I mentioned, really all the product enhancements I've been talking about today have been based upon Kentucky's feedback, and specifically the DNS on-prem v2 and the other enhancements I've mentioned will address those BYOD DNS filtering limitations. We're going to enhance the troubleshooting for GG app to make that easier for you as well, which will make filtering of staff and faculty devices, Windows devices, easier for you. And lastly, really get that DNS on-prem reporting and user and agent awareness into the application for you, so you know exactly where the traffic is coming from and where it's going to. Now, again, there's a lot of stuff in flight, and there's a lot that will be ready by 7/31. As I said, there's also work that's going to stretch beyond 7/31 because of our roadmap commitments to Kentucky. So we're going to keep investing in admin to make sure it is a product that works best for the state of Kentucky. All right, so then I'm going to switch over to one of our other teammates here. Joe Lilly is our head of support, so I'll hand it off to him for his portion. Joe?
Hey, thanks, Brian. Hey, everyone. I'm Joe Lilly.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Joe.
Yes.
If you don't mind, I'd love to go through this slide because I guess this is really the important piece of what we're doing right now to get the implementation to the switchover date by June 30th, but then this ongoing effort that's currently in play, Brian, that you just covered, and then allow the teams to pause there and just ask questions, because there was a lot there we've already done to improve the product experience. There are 4 key areas that we have heard very specific feedback from the schools and school districts around areas we can get better. Brian, you've just done a really nice job of outlining the fact that we've actually got roadmaps to solve the 4 primary areas by mid-June beta to then a flip over. Our belief is by July 31st. I always saying to David that one thing I appreciate about you, Brian, the way that you define betas is that you've got a nice window to be able to make sure the betas work, but your success rates on your betas are pretty remarkable, and they move much faster into full releases, just given the quality of the work that goes into the betas. And so I say that because while we have said mid-June and then full resolution by July 31st, the reality in my mind is, I think that's a cautious. We'll be done sooner than that because of the excellence of your team. But those dates and those updates that you just described are really important. And so I just want to make sure we allow the teams to ask questions here versus waiting till the very end and then coming back. Joe, your part's important because it is around support and resources. But given that a lot of very constructive feedback from the teams have been through the lens of product requests, feel it's necessary to kind of stop and just pause. So if you don't mind, Brian, just kind of quickly cover the notion of great work in place. We got everything in place right now to do the switchovers. Then your products allow us then to be able to be in a very good place come mid to the end of July. And to your point, that's just the beginning of many more things to come. But these 4 primary asks are things that we will have done by, you said July 31st. I'm saying it's probably going to be a little bit sooner because of how good you are. But I think it's really important that we pause here and just have that discussion.
And one thing before you go, for our staff, and just a reminder for our districts, is make sure you don't have an open AI bot that's following you into meetings. I talked about that before. For our staff, I noticed an open AI bot had attached itself or was trying to get in this meeting. So I'm assuming our staff has already removed it. But just a reminder to districts, especially with the open AI bot, is it tends to, without the person even knowing it, follow you to meetings and try to join those. And so we immediately remove those. We have, these transcripts already captured. We don't need that to go through that. We do summaries of this. And that's going to an open system versus the closed system that we have as far as doing the transcript. So please make sure our staff is removing that open AI bot, and make sure just everyone districts. I just want to make you aware. You may not be aware that they're following you because that's the way they work. And so you'd have to do something on your end to make sure it's not following you to a bunch of meetings. So Brian, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead and take off.
Not a problem at all. Yeah. Happy to pause here if there are questions that folks have around these features. David, speaking to the issues of bots following you around, honestly, I spoke earlier about proxies. That's a great example. I was literally telling my family the other day that I now fight robots at work a lot of the time because these proxies are auto spun up every single day, and they're too fast for humans to catch anymore. And so we had to design AI to fight robots, essentially. So it's definitely getting to an interesting place out here.
I'll say one thing before you get them. I'll just comment here. I was away a little bit. I was part in 1998, and most people know I've been part of this since 1992, of that law, that Kentucky state law. So I'm very familiar with what was written and at that level of the filtering and tracking. So I just tell you, it was very general kind of level. It wasn't kind of detailed, and it gave a lot of flexibility. So a district may interpret that law to go levels way below to where it really is. And so I can just tell you, the tracking of internet activity is at a very high level. And the ability to block certain sites is a very high level. So I understand certain districts may interpret or want to enforce that law to a higher degree with filtering, but it's not a requirement of the law. because I'm very familiar with it and the high level of it. He was written very general and very high level versus the detailed, even the regulation that followed it. So, and it will remain such. But it does give districts the flexibility if they want to filter at a level 10 versus, students and adults where really the law requires a level 1 or level 2. Districts can go way beyond it. And I can just tell you the tracking was not the requirement at a detailed level that I saw there. It was at a very, very high level, generic level. Obviously, you want the tools to be as sophisticated as we can. But I just want to make that point. The other point I would say, I'm going to use some sports analogies here to describe this. We were talking about earlier, playing quarterback, and then a new offensive coordinator comes in. The book looks different. We played it before, but the game is a little bit different, even though trying to achieve the same type of thing. I think even with a golf grip, we were talking about it is changing a golf grip and changing the swing is, you're doing something similar, but it feels really different when you're doing it.
Okay.
And I'll give a technology one. When we transitioned early in the 90s or late 90s, this would be late 90s, there was a different release of Munis that was put out there. Definitely we went to the cloud-based version of Munis. So the buttons were a little bit different place on the computer and the screens look different. Anytime the screens look different. So, when I talk with our staff is the functionality is there.
Mhm.
And I know I'm impressed with the kind of things that you're doing, listening to the feedback we're getting. But the functionality is there, but it's done a different way. And I remember having that discussion with Munis and almost everything else we're doing. The offensive coordinator's playbook is very similar. You still have out patterns, you still have, deep patterns, you still have, but it's a little bit different in the terminology you're using and where it's at and the timing of it. So this is kind of what reminds me when we do a transition of any type. And there's some new things, as we said early on. You're going to learn some things from Kentucky that you've not learned in any other state. I think you said even though you have statewide deployments in other states, there's things here
100%.
that and we told you that there's things here that happen in Kentucky that other states don't do. They don't press their product as hard, and we're going to make your company better.
100%.
And we're seeing you're making your company better. Now you're going to help other states in doing that by making it better. And definitely if they ever get to the point where they're doing internet content management for their adults, which perplexes me why they're not doing that for their adults, they'll be ready for that. Or any site that does that, they'll be ready for it. And I know there's one of the things that we found that when people were like at hotels or whatever, there was an issue. So that was a fine tuning of that. And that's told me you've not had a lot of adults that use the product, beyond the school campus. And so, so I hope I bought some time for you for people to ask questions, Brian, or for you to think of, respond to questions that you saw that were, because you saw some of the ones that popped up there. What I saw is a good number of this addresses that. And to your point, John, is you pick some time frames, but typically you aggressively meet those ahead of time and trying to address it, knowing the sense of urgency that we have here.
Thanks, David. I appreciate that. We did get one question, which is actually a pretty in-depth question from Jacob Ingram, Bourbon County. Jacob, if it's all right, I would love to follow up with you offline about that to learn more about your installation and dive into like the depth of the technical matters there. And that way I can have some technical people with me as well, kind of bring me some backup. I do want to mention, I know, David, that you're a big sports fan. One of the ways that I stay in touch with our customers is not just by listening to customer feedback like this, but it's also by watching how students behave. So we actually lurk on a bunch of student forums like Discord to see what they're saying about Go Guardian. And I'm really happy to say that a while back when we released that new Smart Alerts for Proxies feature, we got a flurry of comments from students online about it, right? Getting annoyed about how we were blocking their games and their proxies and stuff. And one stood out in my mind. It was a student that said, "Yo, Go Guardian is prime LeBron." So I absolutely loved that. And I think of that every single day. My team got such a kick out of it. So I'm glad to see that you feel the same way that we do about responding to customer feedback so strongly. So.
Hey, Brian, I appreciate your point about Jacob. You want to follow up specifically. Let's just action win. Can we do that today, tomorrow? I just want to be immediate because he's asking very good questions. And I know some of those questions that he is asking, other districts may have similar questions. So we can solve his questions. We can then solve others. And so let's just make sure we're quite on the nose and very specific about the action that we're going to take there and the speed by which we're going to do it.
Jared makes a good comment to my comment about meeting the requirements of the law. When we've been at Microsoft Proxy, that's about as bare minimum as you get, and it didn't meet the requirements of the law. Obviously, with Lightspeed now Go Guardian, obviously there are much more sophisticated and better products, but just to make sure you understand, is the Microsoft proxy 2.0, because the regulation and law are very general and give a lot of latitude for those that want to just beat the bare requirements and those that want to go 10 levels deep into it. It did meet it. Now, obviously, we're much happier with the direction we've gone to Lightspeed, and now these are much more sophisticated products. But Microsoft proxy, the case in point, to Jared's point, is it met the requirements of law. So if that meets it, this definitely does meet it. These products definitely do meet it. Now we want them to get better as we go on.
Indeed.
Tyler, well done. Sorry.
Fair point. Feedback taken.
It does. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, I don't see any more questions, technical questions for product. So I will go ahead and transition it back over to Joe. But if you do have technical questions, feel free to toss them into the chat.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, I'm going to jump in on this next slide real quick because I'll make the transition for you easy here. If we can go, Aaron, next slide. The intention of this next slide here is just to reinforce two things. One, there's a whole series of efforts in flight right now from an implementation phase standpoint to create that switchover. We've got our customer support team, our solutions engineers, and our product and engineering team supporting not only what we need to do right now for that switchover, but also things we can do to improve the experience during the switchover, but also post. And then obviously after that switchover, we're not stopping. We've got a long-term relationship with you, a long-term partnership with you. And so solutions engineers will still be involved. Customer support's going to be involved, and the product engineering team will stay involved. And so really this is to ensure that all of you recognize we're here to commit to resourcing to get the switchover done June 30th, while committing to product roadmaps and development that will fix some of the things today, but also fix the things that you're asking us to do as we move into July and then on into back to school. So with that, I'm going to have Joe go through, as I mentioned, the other two buckets that are important to us. One is around support and the other is around resources. And then we'll just close out with any remaining open questions and conversations that you would love to have with us.
Thanks, John. We can move the slide forward, but I think this is just a continuation of what John said. So I'm Joe Lilly again, and I lead our support team. So this isn't just about getting to the finish line on June 30th and switching over. We're here to support you all through the entire partnership. And so, Aaron, if you can move the slide, please. So essentially, I just am here to say I'm super proud of the support that we provide. As you saw earlier, we have already spent about 1,000 hours plus with our solution engineering team, and we're going to continue to support you with our customer support team and our solution engineers post switchover. Aaron, can you move the slide, please? Essentially, our support right now is best in class. We have super high customer satisfaction scores. Our customers are voting and saying that we're resolving their issues and they're happy with the engagement that they have. We're giving Kentucky front of the line support. So when you and your districts and anyone across the Kentucky districts reach into support, you'll be at the front of the line. You'll get served ahead of others. We find that when you engage with a live agent, on average, it's about 100 seconds to get in touch with a live customer success agent, which again, we feel really, really proud that we're able to serve our customers that quickly. We have a 97% resolution rate. We have been very successful at scaling, so we know this is a big project. We know there's a lot of districts involved, but we also, are ready and have taken tens of thousands of contacts a month, and so we're ready for the scale. We're ready to help you, and we have tons of also self-help resources that are available both to you and to all of our customers. On the other side, this is about end-to-end support. You reach out to our support agents. That's a team-based approach. We can connect with product. We can connect with people you're hearing from today on the phone, just to make sure that we can resolve your issue, no matter what that is. We'll give you progressive and proactive updates on the status of your issue for those things that are complex. I'm confident we're going to learn from you all. I'm confident we're going to find situations that we haven't anticipated, and then we're going to have to take some of those offline. But my commitment to you is we're going to keep you updated. We're going to be clear, just like today, on our timelines, our prioritization, where they fit, and how we can be most helpful to you. We also have an opportunity for you to subscribe to updates so you can see and automatically get notified about the performance of our systems if there's an anomaly, if there's an outage, if something goes wrong along the way. And then lastly, we have easy ways to escalate, and we're going to open up office hours. Those of you who saw in the chat earlier, we already have office hours available for our solution engineers 3 times a week, where you can jump in with any question, big or small, and get the help that you need. We're going to continue that in the first, well, as long as we need to, quite honestly, with our support agents. So not only do you have access to get a hold of them whenever you need, but there'll be office hours. We've actually found that some district leaders, probably on this call, like to join those just to listen to the questions from other people and get those answers proactively. And so that's another thing we're going to be doing. All that to say, I'm super proud of what we have to offer, but I know that we're going to learn in this transition. And like David said, there's a lot going on. It's a compressed timeline. Not everything's going to be super simple. And so we also want to learn from you, and we want to adapt. If you can move to the next slide, Aaron. Essentially, our goal is to continuously improve. So as we're learning those things, we're going to adapt to what you need. These are just some examples of things we've already adapted to. But my commitment is that we want to continue to take your feedback, not just on product, but also on how we can better support you, how we can make sure that our agents show up and get you the results that you need and are able to set you up for success. So some of the things we've already done, we've quadrupled our solution engineering to support you, so that we can be really confident in our timeline to get everyone switched over. We already have about 40 districts who have switched over. We have a lot more to go, and so we're confident we can get there. We've dedicated resources to some of our larger districts and some unique tech environments. We're going to continue to do that so that you have a point of contact, again, to make sure that this is successful. We're continuing to innovate both on the Kentucky specific resource hub to make sure that the digital resources are available, so you don't always have to connect with an agent. Our goal is that we make this as easy as possible for you to get the information you need and the support that you need. We're going to continue enhancing our guides. We're going to continue to monitor our traction and make sure that we are on track to switch over every district by 6:30. And like I said before, we've already implemented office hours, and those will continue. Those are meant to serve you and to make sure that we're ready to support all of your needs. So again, I am very confident that we're going to be able to help all of you. I'm also very confident we're going to learn. We're going to find things we didn't anticipate, and we're going to adapt and continuously improve. So really looking forward to continuing the partnership, and excited that 6:30 is right around the corner, and we've got a lot of great things coming to help you all.
Hey, Joe, I appreciate what you just went through. I want to just reinforce how specific and detailed we are trying to be right now to solve your needs. And so I'm going to give a very specific example. We've gotten very good feedback, and I appreciate the passion from those on this call that, hey, your Kentucky resource hub that you built, it's good, but could be a heck of a lot better. We have a new project manager on our team. Her name's Marissa Gavin. Her responsibility is she's going to work with all of you to immediately make that hub better based on where we are in the implementation environment, and then continue to make updates to it as we move from implementation over into back to school and beyond. So very specific person responsible for a very specific task to solve your needs. Joe speaks to dedicated resources to support larger districts. We have a gentleman on our team. His name is Jared. He has raised his hand and said, I specifically want to make sure that I am 24/7 available full-time supporting Kentucky and some of the larger districts that have unique needs. So there is, again, another one-to-one example of a specific person taking care of these needs. And so while Joe talked broadly about a lot of changes we are making, I just want to add 2 examples of very specific things that we are doing based on the feedback you all are providing us. And that way, who's accountable, but then we can actually then solution the very specific details that person like Marissa is driving to make the content hub better.
So I want to ask you all this. I saw Jason Richter's note here. I saw this note, and Jody was talking about this yesterday, and I guess it was Matt Jury. I understand with our current Lightspeed environment that, and you all can tell me if it's different, is our districts don't call directly. They also have moved to a model to where you do email, you do a chat, and they do that support structure and once that occurs, is then you all can do a voice-to-voice with them, but there's not a number that you're calling directly. But after that initial thing, when you're doing some fault determination, who's the best person, resource, then it gets back to them voice to voice. And it's not something like we currently have. We didn't have that with Microsoft, by the way, either. Don't have it with Lightspeed. And so, but there's a method, and you can see the metrics you were showing a little bit earlier about the customer satisfaction rate, about the time. it takes a circle back and the closure rate being 92, 97%. And those are outstanding of any metric. So I just want to give you all the chance to talk about that. Jody, you can mention, or anyone else can mention that. I saw that mentioned. So, but it appears the model you have is the model that has been used. We currently have with Lightspeed, we had with Microsoft, and you're going to keep that model going forward. But you quickly get back to them once that goes through.
Yeah, and the only add, Joe, please jump in if I say anything out of turn here. What we're trying to do is, yes, we believe the model works. The model can always be improved, particularly when we've got a customer like Kentucky in a truncated time of a window of like an implementation phase, that we are putting specific humans to be able to be available voice to voice or email to email. And my example there is Jared. So we're going to make sure that Jared has, okay, these are the districts that I'm supporting. They know that they can call me. There's a voice to voice that can happen. And that way he can directly solve an immediate problem, but also be aware of other customer support tickets or other things that might be happening. And he's going to sort of solution watching those pieces to have a single point of contact to support them.
I guess it also reminds me, and I'll just talk about it in general. I've called folks that have a live voice, and I get why they like it, but I'm going and explaining to it. I can tell that person cannot answer that call at all.
That's right.
So they're going, oh, you want to talk to this, and so you have to go through the whole thing again.
That's right.
Because they just heard, and so they were trying to do fault determination. It goes to. So you have a tool that instead you calling and you're going through the whole thing, is you have a tool that you have folks that are sitting there going, it goes here, 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 versus what I'm doing is I'm going to explain the whole problem to someone that can't answer it, probably didn't understand 99% of it, but you're trying to get it to the right resource in your organization that can answer it and quickly get back.
Yeah, David, I mean, you hit it right on the nose. We have seen success in the model that we have. In addition to that, things we aren't doing for every other customer, but again, we will be doing here, is opening up office hours. So we can have live conversation with a variety of expertise. So you get the right person, they're available, and you can jump in as needed. In addition to that, if you're reaching out, through chat, as an example, average 100 seconds to get to a live person, that person can help you schedule a call with, a solution engineer if needed, a product leader if needed, or a support agent, or it can just solve your issue. And so, behind all of that, we do have the opportunity to move into a voice-to-voice setting. Like John said, we've already identified some districts and individuals who have, more complex environments or are larger and just need a little bit of extra support, a dedicated person to work with. And so we're going to continue to adapt, but that's right. We believe this is the right model. We've seen that it works, and we'll continue to adapt to make it better.
Hey, Joe, Stella brings a good question. I just asked if we don't answer it here to follow up. Is there a place where we can actually show, hey, here are the open help tickets by sort of district? And that way, then they can see, okay, how many open tickets are out there for my particular district or sites. And let's make sure we answer that question. And then, is there a way to, if the answer is no, if there's not an easy way, then what's a solution that we can solve? Because I do think that that's an important thing for us to be able to organize, to have available, not only to help Stella, but also to help our team sort of truncate and solve those things that come up for a particular site or school district.
Yeah, thanks, John. So we don't currently have a customer-facing way to look at all of your tickets. It is something, Stella, I know you and I talked about this recently. We do have an opportunity. We are looking at how quickly we can prioritize that. I also saw the question about, the chat notification sound. Both of those are currently in investigation. I'll have to get back to you on how fast we could prioritize those improvements, but they're definitely on our list and we're investigating them.
Cool. Hey, Joe, let's just work through that investigation and then come back with specific dates on what we can do to solve there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you an update by tomorrow. I'll reach out to Stella with an update.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Okay. I think it might be back over to me to help close this out today. Not that we still won't answer questions or things that pop up. And just ending with, how can you guys help? We mentioned all of the ways that we're here to support you guys, and that's what we want to end with, that we are committed to your success, and we are so excited to be partnering with you all in the state of Kentucky. Continuously be on the lookout for communications from our team. And specifically, those communications are asking you guys to complete a series of steps, but the most important one is to set up a one-on-one time with our solutions engineering team. That is the most important step that is going to get you set up for success, because those solution engineers will log into that meeting with you face to face. They're going to ask you some really direct questions to figure out where you are in your understanding of GoGuardian and your implementation, and they're just going to pick up where you are and take you forward. And what we are trying to do moving forward is make sure that whoever your very first meeting was with stays with you throughout your journey of onboarding. So I know sometimes some districts, your first meeting might have been with one of our solutions engineers, and your second meeting, just by chance of scheduling it, was with someone else. We're going to try very hard to not make that your experience. We're going to try very hard to have continuity across your onboarding. So again, the number one thing you can do, look out for our communications, which is specifically around scheduling your one-on-one sessions. We're here to support you. Again, be prepared to make that switch by June 30th, and continue to raise your feedback as you have it. We take this seriously. John, our team, we are committed to continuously improving to meet your needs. And again, we're here to make this a success. So just thank you all. We also, we've done Q&A throughout, so this little piece to the side is a little irrelevant, but we do have a QR code, and we've used this in other presentations that we've done at KISTI, I think at the very beginning of the year when we kicked off. This goes to our shared questions form, and then what we do is in that questions form, we take everything and we add it to our Q&A doc, and we get you guys direct responses. So obviously, take this QR code. You can put things in the chat, please. But this is a great resource as well. We love collecting feedback, and we make sure we address it and get into our Q&A document. And thank you, Nai. You don't need to. Naisha is one of our customer success leads or project managers on this with me as well. She has been taking all of your questions from the chat and logging it to the side, so you don't need to repeat your question in here. This is just if you would like to add additional questions.
I'll say this, I know we're looking at some of these final types of things. Just like sovereignty was in the winter circle this past weekend, we're trying to get all the districts to across the winter circle as well. So we've talked about the dates. A key date for us is 30 June. That's definitely the date that Lightspeed is turned off as far as the state provided service. The DNS cutover that's a date we're looking for. Jody knows I'm trying to press what is the DNS cutover date for districts that have not opted out or been scratched, and trying to get that notified down, knowing that you all have, August, September, and, anytime before the students and adults arrive in mass in late August or early September to complete the transition versus it all having to be done. And I'm hopeful that, and I appreciate the GoGuardian team, John, you and your team, and all of our staff and OET and the districts that have gone forward to kind of give us some things we can learn from and improve from. Nothing's going to be 100% perfect with any of these. I got to tell you this. Nothing is 100% perfect in the world of internet content management. Transitions from one to another are very difficult. There's no right-hand layup to those. You try to make them as simple as possible, but we recognize the difficulty. But I do feel we all get to win the circle on this muddy track. So I do appreciate everyone joining us. Is there anything final words you or the team need to say? Jody, is there any final words that we need to cover that we've not already covered?
Please, honestly, you got me bottled up here for 85. I had 4 pages of notes. You've covered 90% of them, but can I summarize and then maybe finish with one topic related to the product, but not the project?
Okay.
First, honestly, David, you've hit so many of the beats here along with GoGuardian team. This is different. And in some cases it's been difficult. I hope districts understand that we've seen that, GoGuardian's seen that, and we're trying to make this better. I know we throw that timeline up there and we say, hey, you've had since January. Well, we knew about the product since January. And I think as districts have kind of gotten their hands in it, we've seen the challenges. And I don't want people to feel like, if you're only now discovering the challenges that you've somehow missed the boat. The one, several things we have noted. Stay in touch on your assessment schedules. We know about KSA, but we may not know about other things you've got going on. David talked about waivers and people scratching. Again, no issue with that. We just would love to know before we get them in the gate, right? So the sooner we know about that, the better. It's the main thing. We don't want to. We got to clarify things with payment and timelines and resourcing and things like that. We don't want to waste a lot of effort working with districts that are maybe going a different direction. As Aaron noted at the end, schedule and attend those one-on-one meetings. If GoGuardian hasn't talked to you, they're worried that you're MIA, that you haven't even shown up for the race. And so we're trying to make sure that everyone, I know I'm trying to, that everyone actually shows up and has those conversations. We touched on several key things, and obviously one of the purposes today was to make sure districts understand some key things happen as of June 30th. Some notes I had. You're going to lose access to reports. And so as we cut over that DNS, run that report from Lightspeed when it is a factor in all of this. We need to make sure that.
We have to have one of our muters. Someone that
understood.
Not muted. So we did have someone kind of tracking that down.
To Holly from was her page.
There we go. I think we found
we'll get that handled. Sorry about that. But several key things happening as the June 30 approaches, right? And so, one of those, we know we lose access to Lightspeed reports. And so as you're cutting over that DNS, GoGuardian can attest, districts can attest. Sometimes you do all this troubleshooting and you realize there may have been a Lightspeed factor still in there. And so if that's the case, we want to run those reports as well and make sure that that if traffic should no longer be flowing through there, that it's not flowing through there. David, you covered well the Windows tool. We know that Chromebooks and iPads, no big deal. I will say on the Mac side, what Lightspeed told us is they have an uninstall tool, but go ahead and get that out of the console now. If you've got Mac agents or apps rather that need to be uninstalled, go ahead and pull that out now, because I think that uninstall tool lives in the console. You covered the stuff with the hardware and things like that. I mean, we went in some detail on what the backup plan is. This is why you're hearing GoGuardian stress in every conversation for tracking purposes, and because we don't want to just have to do something to a district that's not ready. As June 30 approaches, though, we know this product ceases to function, and we're going to need to move people over to GoGuardian, at least on the DNS side. So you'll hear in your next conversation with GoGuardian staff the need to identify a date that we can work toward to transition that DNS service over, so that we're not caught leaving a district unaware and things like that. Again, I think Joe and team, emphasize the fact that just because you've cut over DNS, there are still support needs, and I think they recognize that. And it's on GoGuardian to make sure that districts feel comfortable being transitioned from that hands-on implementation support over to the more traditional model of support that they have. And so I really do appreciate John and the team. I mean, you all don't know. I know, because I've talked to these folks on other calls. Like, you've got a lot of the heavy hitters and key players here, and I think both the attendance from districts and the attention from GoGuardian shows that a lot of people see this as a really important topic and care about it and want it to be a success. And so that has been a real blessing to see on the webcast today. Now, final topic, and David, I mentioned this only because we were going to cover it on the 520 webcast, and now we're not having that. So if Nate Paul's on here, he may have to cover me on backup. This is not related. To the project, but it does involve the product. Districts probably know more about this than I do, but Google has this thing called their manifest, right? That it's the rules of the road for all extensions in the Chrome browser, and so they are making changes to that, and GoGuardian and Lightspeed and every ad blocker and language translator and every extension under the sun are all having to make changes to comply with Google's manifest settings, right? And so those changes impact GoGuardian as well. We had asked them early on, hey, can we possibly shield Kentucky from this just because of all this other stuff that we've got going on with the project, right? They had worked with us to this point, but now Google's starting to shot clock them, and they are saying, hey, look, by like May 23rd, we need to go ahead and get this pushed to all of our customers. This should be a non-issue as far as things that you would see or things that you would have to do. But I wanted to get in front of this a little bit because you'll see some communication soon from GoGuardian that talks about this. And it's very easy with all this project communication to confuse the manifest conversation and extensions in Chrome with everything going on with this project. But it is happening, and it's happening soon. Again, shouldn't be a huge technical lift on anybody's part, but I wanted districts aware of it in advance of some communication that we may be seeing probably about 2 weeks from now on that topic. Sorry about that. Thanks, David.
Good stuff. Thanks, Jody. And I did have one sentence you said, because I was really trying to clarify no shot clocks on the Chromebook, the iOS, the Mac OS. We know, did you mention there's a shot clock on the Mac OS? Because that's
So key point, there's not a shot clock on the ability of the tool to function, my understanding, but to get access to the tool, it currently resides in the Lightspeed. Like a district would go into the Lightspeed console to grab that tool. So if they go ahead and grab that tool and download it now because they know they're going to need it, then they will have it. Then they can remove it whenever
it will
time
work
works for them.
after 30 June. They just need to grab
Our
it.
understanding is it will. Yes, correct. The Windows one is the one with the major shot clock.
Do they need to grab the Chrome and the iOS tool before that time, or is that it's just the Mac OS they got to grab?
My understanding on the Chrome is just an extension. Districts are familiar with going into the Google environment and removing those extensions. And then on the iPad side, I think it's like just an app that they can uninstall. So, but I think we've covered most of those platforms. Obviously, the Windows removal tool being as long as you have access to the Mac removal tool if you need it, the Windows tool and that 731 date is probably the biggest shot clock item there.
And Jody, I love the artwork you have behind you at Marshall County Schools there. It's great stuff to see kids' artwork.
Yeah, you're tipping my hand, David. I didn't use a fake background. I have stolen an office from a finance officer that's at Casbo. And I hope I haven't aggravated half this hallway of staff. So yeah, you got me.
Jody, thank you for the time you're spending on this. Jennifer Devine too, Go Guardian team, all the districts and our staff of focusing on this. And we're juggling many other things at the same time. I know we have the identity management, the identity automation effort we got going on. We've transitioned to NGKI and plus all the other 1,000 things going on in the district. So just wanted to, once again, as we make that turn for the home stretch, make sure as much as possible we're educating folks on it, getting feedback from it. All right, well, thanks. I think that's it. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and enjoy your 20th of May. Since we've all combined it in, and take care and have a good rest of the day and good rest of the week.